Hey there YouTube, Steve Bentley here, and this is Off-Road Grind, and I want to show you the finished product of what we're going to be talking about today. And this is the front high clearance bumper that I made, scratch out of plate steel that I bought from the steel yard, and just cut everything out in templates. I'll show you those and how we went through the whole process, even building these little grill guards here. I think it turned out really nice. Super excited. Even better, my wife loves it, so that's awesome. We've got a 12,000 pound Badlands winch in there, and I'm going to take you through everything. So stay tuned, enjoy the program, and ask any questions you've got. I'm so excited about this project. I've been waiting for this for a while. And this is going to be the front bumper build on the 4Runner. It's going to be so awesome. I've got very little room in my garage because I'm working on cabinets for the back of the truck, a hitch mount for a friend, and a transmission case, skid plate. But now we're working on my front bumper. A while ago, I cut out in cardboard and then transitioned over to thin plywood, 5mm plywood, all the parts that I want to have for the bumper. So they're in a box. I put it on the car. I'll try and find some photos and pop that up, what that looked like. It was kind of funny looking. But this is all the parts, and I'm going to actually take these and put them down on the sheets of steel, figure out the pattern that I want to maximize the amount of steel that I'm able to use and minimize the amount of cutting that I'm going to do. And then I'm going to get busy with my plasma cutter here, which is going to make the job so much easier, actually maybe even just possible. But this is going to be a great project. I'm really looking forward to how this is going to turn out. Great thing about welding and cutting all this stuff myself is I can tweak it a little bit and change it the way I like in terms of how I want it to look. And then we can just grind it down at the end, and I'm going to coat it with some enamel, Rust-Oleum enamel, and then put some black Raptor liner on it. I think that's going to be a really good look for the finished bumper. Got things laid out. Used 2 of the 3 pieces of 3/16 inch steel that I've got, and then I have some 1/4 inch steel over here that I was hoping to be able to use for the winch base. So that's perfect. That's 8 inches wide, which is exactly what my winch base is going to be. So that's going to come off that 1/4 inch piece. And then these side supports actually go in. I'm going to have this bumper off in a minute, but we've got this piece here, the back plate that bolts in to these 3 bolts right up here, and that side support goes in there onto the side of it, and I want those out of 1/4 inch steel as well. So that's what those are, and they're gonna slot right in here and come in behind and then jag up. And then the rest of the plates, the winch plate, this is the lower skid face that follows up the line of the front skid plate there. They all attach onto that initial backing plate, that one there. And then the wings of the front bumper, they all come off here. So for the driver's side, I cut them out of plywood just to make sure they fit. And what I'm going to do is I've got the passenger ones here laid out just so I know I've got enough steel, and I'll start wiggling them around to fit it properly to maximize my cuts or the steel. But I'm just going to use, once I have a cut from the plywood here, it's going to be a lot more accurate than trying to cut using a template out of cardboard. I'm just going to flip it and then do the exact same thing backwards. Yeah, we need to take off these clips here, and then these bolts. I've had some off from before when I was messing with the bumper. And there's another one here, a nut. I guess they're nuts, not bolts. The bolts are welded into this back part here. And then these screws down here in the wheel wells, and I've got some bolts up underneath here as well that need to come off. I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them. This little guy works quite nicely for popping these off. Okay, so we got the nuts off the bumper support, these little fasteners out, all the bolts. These are 10 mils. Here, actually, these ones go up underneath the bumper here. All little 10 mil bolts. Here, there, and then these are in the 10 mil here and up inside the wheel well. Right, it's this bracket here. It's bolted into this part of the frame here, and I got to get up underneath it to undo that, and again avoid the. I'm pretty sure that's airbags. Maybe I should check into that before I start jacking around with it. But I had this all off before and I just didn't touch those. I'm pretty sure that's airbags. So I'm going to take these little bolts off, and then this bracket I think swings around underneath the headlight. I can feel, and I think there's some more bolts up inside there too. Let's go check. Yeah, right up here. Don't know if you can see that, but that bolt's got to come out, and that's attached to the bumper here. I remembered something about a bracket over here, but I just couldn't see it. So this is what was stopping it. This screw, I had it loosened out, but it was up and through here and up in here, and it was jamming up in this sucker here, this retaining bracket, so I couldn't get it out. And I think there's some bolts in the front that allow me to take the bumper part from these posts off. Let's try and get these off though. Okay. Come on. Oh, right, fog lights. And the bolts, you can see them right here. If I can't pull this off, and I don't think I could last time, I had to loosen these off on the inside, and that allows this post to come off. But looks like it might come off this time. There we go. Yeah, that was not coming off last time. Yeah, so this is the bracket that's on these screws over here. So now that that's all off, I can pull that off. And then, so bumper out of the way. I think that's going to come off later, but I'm not worried about that right now. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, so I'm going to cut these back. And then I've noticed that this whole area here is really exposed. I've cut this off already, these stupid wings that were out there doing nothing. You'll see once we put the bumper on, this washer fluid reservoir is really exposed, and I don't like it at all. So I'm going to relocate that. Totally common, everybody does it, and I don't have to worry then about rocks coming up and smashing the pump or the reservoir itself. I'm going to put that, I got lots of room up in here. I don't think I'll put it here. Well, maybe I'm going to try and put it here just because I want to try and save this area here for second battery that I'm planning on putting in once I get these bumpers done. So I'm going to try and fit it into this area here. See what happens. Okay, let's clean this up and then start fitting in the bumper parts. Got the front plate in, and I wanted to get this clearance up at the front as high as possible. So I'm cutting this back a little bit. I'm trying to keep it in line with the front skid plate and bring it up. I'm probably going to lop these off at some point and bring this right up here. I'd like to take this off here. That's the winch plate. bring that back a tad, but I want to make sure the winch fits on there properly. We've got a Harbor Freight Apex 12,000 pound winch, so it's gonna be a monster. I'm just realizing I don't need this little bracket here, so I'm gonna cut that off right now and free up that spot in there for the winch. And it's got a removable solenoid, so I'll probably end up popping that in the engine bay somewhere. But we're just gonna take that off right now and fit the winch in there. Hopefully, let's put this water container, I think that'll hold it. So that worked out okay. Just wanted to take that bracket off and smooth it off a little bit so I don't catch my hand on there. That's nice. I'll touch that up with paint later, so I'm sure there's going to be some other areas as well. And so what I've done here is I took the brackets that were on that piece of metal that connected in here and went across the front. I took these off because I found the headlights were moving up and down too much, so I cut this off here. It was probably twice as long, and then smooth that down, put that back in, these bolts here, and then that's the screw that goes into the headlight and mounts that. So that's nice and solid on both sides, so I like that. This isn't going to be in the way. Maybe I'll angle that there. It seems like a sharp corner, but anyways. So as you can see, I've lowered this winch plate a little bit. It was up here, but when I brought the grill down, this was above the grill, and I couldn't release the lever to free spool the winch. So I had to lower that. Probably wanted to give myself about 1/4 of an inch there, so got lots of room to be able to reach in. I still got to figure out the plating here, and I'm just realizing here that I can make that winch plate a little narrower, which is important because the wider this winch plate is here, the farther out it goes, the more shallow this angle has to be. And I want to get this as steep as I can. I don't mind having it the same. Right now it's about the same angle as that front skid plate, but I wouldn't mind it coming up a little bit more because it's going to come up again. So I've realized if I, let's see, I'll show you here. If I did a few things here. So what I've done is I've got this mount here, and I just grabbed it with some pliers. I think I used some channel lock pliers, these guys. Just grabbed it on here and torqued it over. But I just bent this back, and that allowed me, I don't know if you can see that, to push that winch back quite a bit. Because I know when I start refeeding the line, it's not going to be in as tight as this, so I'm going to account for a little bit of a bulge. And so that might even have to come out a little bit farther. Oops. Might have to come out a little bit farther than that. Maybe just a smidge there. And then that gives me enough room here at the front to cut this plate a little bit narrower, and then I can change the angle from here up to about there. And then my thought is to take this, oops, let's get that out of the way, and then we want to have a bit of a fair lead plate here, so that's going to be the fair lead. So if I can go back to there, it's going to angle out a little bit, so I'm not too concerned about it being too tight at the front on the rope here. I just need it to be able to get out a little bit. So this is going to come up from maybe this corner here up to about there, it looks like, and then from here I'm going to angle that out, put the fair lead plate there. And my thought is, I've seen things where you can put the license plate right on the fair lead and then flip it up out of the way, which is cool. That way I got the license plate checked off. I might be able to put it down lower because, you know, it does look cool having a winch fair lead on the front of your rig. But if I can't mount it underneath here because of air ports, and I'll figure out that soon. There's my thought process of popping it right here in the center, which is great. And then I'll pop this down. And then what I'm going to plan on doing here is just this top plate here. I was thinking of doing it like that, flat. I don't like that gap there, so I'm probably going to angle that up like that. So I'm going to have to shave these quarters down a little bit. And then cut this out here to be able to reach under to access the hood release, and then also jack with the winch clutch release as well. So that's where I'm at so far. I'm kind of liking the way that's going to work. So I'm going to have to take off these side supports again and cut them to get to the right angle here, or steepness, and then shave this back a tad. I just want to get everything all dialed in and perfectly fit before I start transferring that over to the steel. Next, I've got the front plates that I want to put in and make sure I got those all dialed in properly. May have to do a couple different pieces. I don't know. I'm gonna have to check. I want to have a nice transition into my front skid plate here. Don't mind having a couple of angles, steel. It's not like I can't bend it or weld angles in there. But that's where we're at right now. And once I've got this front center area set, then I'm gonna start working on the wings, as I call them. And so that's gonna go in here like this. So anyways, this is kind of the fun part of it. It's still early, so I'm not annoyed yet at how long it's taking, but I just want to make sure I get this all set up properly before we get into the next stages. So if you're building a bumper and you're going through this process, don't rush it. You know, everybody's rig is a little different, and how you want it to look is different. You know, there's a bunch of different bumper builds out there that I like the look of, but there's certainly things that I want to tweak, and one of them is this whole area in here. A lot of them are just really exposed, and I think I talked about that before. Not a big deal on that side, but on this side you got a lot of wires, and there's your fuel reservoir, washer fluid reservoir that we want to relocate, because I want to make sure that everything's protected. And so the wings and having some protection down here, and obviously we want it to be the same on both sides. So that's where we're at right now, looking good. And let me fart around with this for a little bit, and then I'll come back and show you where we're at. Okay, I think I'm dialed in for what I want. And here's where we're at right now. So this is what it's going to look like. I'm just going to transfer over the wings from the right side, flip them, and make some steel for the left side. It better be the same, otherwise I'm going to be really ticked off. But I'm pretty sure it's pretty consistent. These things are so consistent between vehicles. So I'll do some measurements, but I think maybe what I'll do is before I start cutting, I will take the templates, flip them, and put them on the other side. But anyways, so what I've got dialed in here and lined up, gonna have the winch opening, gonna have some lights here. I'm trying to decide between a 2.5 and a 3-inch. There's some good airflow through here still. So there's the radiator, but there's a lot of radiator under here. Obviously the winch is here. I'm gonna pop in some openings here, and then on the plate in the back and behind all this, I'm gonna put a couple of other openings. I don't know if you remember, but on the one back plate there, I had a little opening lined up. I might put 2 or 3 in there. I don't want to put too many in though, because I want to make sure that's really strong. I think it's going to be okay. We got a lot of steel, 1/4-inch steel up in here, and here it's going to be welded into this plate where the bolts are, so I think I'm good. From the side here, we've got the wings. I like the way this is looking. I am going to angle this back a little bit. Instead of it being straight, I'm going to angle it. So we just had to cut a bit more relief on some of these pieces here. There's a little piece of, remember those little screws that I took off for the bracket up there? I just cut them off. It was here, and it was blocking this piece from being able to get in far enough. I don't want these too low and too wide. I think that's a good size right there. So there's my, that's the way it's gonna look. I'm liking that. And like I mentioned before, I'm not gonna cut this until after I'm done, but chances are it's gonna come straight across here to here. I think that's probably what's likely gonna happen. And then for a lighting on the side, I like the idea of taking this fog light and putting it up in here, right there. Or I'll put the fog light here. Actually, I think I like that idea better. I'm gonna put the fog light here at the front, so I've got straight ahead viewing, and then I'm gonna probably put some, like a ditch light type thing that's gonna be shining out in a wider pattern, so that if I'm, you know, off-roading at night and I'm looking to see what's around a corner, for example, I can flick that light on and get some good lateral illumination. That just came to my head. Anyway, so there we're at. I should probably get the shackles from, yeah, I don't really feel like going to Harbor Freight right now to get the shackles, but I've learned in the past I should probably do that before I get busy cutting, because it's always nice to have the thing, just like the winch, it's nice to have that on hand so that you can start putting things together properly. And then one final thing, so I'm gonna bring that up so it's just underneath the grill. And then I've got to figure out the angles here, so I'm going to trim this back a little bit to match the angle of that front plate. I'm thinking that's not going to, although right now, that looks like it's about the same angle. I don't really want it to be. I want this to be steeper, so I might end up pushing this back a little bit. I just need to make sure I can get enough room in here to access the nuts that I'm going to be putting on there, but I think actually, if I push this back, because I want this to come down and I want this angle to be back a little farther. That actually might work out well. I just want this on both sides for protection. There's not much over here, but as I mentioned before, we've got the washer fluid reservoir, and there's a lot of other things over here that look like they're open. I guess it's really just the washer fluid reservoir, and if I move that, then I think we're good. I don't want to jack with this plate on either side because it looks like it's tied into this support member here. So I'm just going to leave it and spray paint it black, because obviously the truck's white, so that's why they've got it white. But I don't want to see it once I've got the bumper going. So we're getting pretty close. I'm excited. I think it's coming along really well. There's a bit of a side view in where the winch is going to sit. I got lots of room in there. I'm going to put a 1/4-inch steel plate for the winch plate base. So that's going to give lots of structure and support. And I was going to trim this down a little bit, but I don't see any need for it, because I think if I keep it like that, it's a little higher than the winch plate. It's going to give us a little bit more support. Actually, once I get the welds in there, anything above that's not going to provide any support anyways, because it's not connected to anything. So yeah, I might bring that down just a smidge, maybe 1/2 inch. It'll add a little bit more airflow to the radiator, but I'm not that concerned about that. But anyways, there we go. This is going to get trimmed straight down on both sides, right in here, and then I'm going to pull this back as well. So I've got a little jacking around to do with this little section here, but I think it's going to look really good as it comes across and then dips down. A bit more work, but I think I like the way that's going to look. That transition is going to be really nice. Okay, coming along really well, and I think I'm pretty close to being ready to start cutting some steel. I'll show you what we've done so far. So I've got this front plate here. I want to get some more airflow into the radiator, and I've got 2 holes you can see ready to cut for that back plate. And then I had these cut down farther, and then I didn't like the way it looked, so I just brought them back up a bit. And I'm just going to bring them up to the bottom of this plate here, so any water accumulating in here can just drain out through the bottom of the holes. And I actually had them all sized to be the same as these side ports here for the shackle rings, but it looked like it was too much, so I just brought it down. License plate fits perfectly up there, so that's great. Pretty happy with that. So I don't have to do the winch opening thing. And I'm going to put a light port here, and then one up in here as well. I actually bought some lights today when I went out to get some stuff, and I think that one will go down here, and hopefully I'll be able to angle it a little bit like that, make a little cup in behind with some steel and angle it, and then flick those on if I want to illuminate kind of the front side view of the vehicle. We are all ready to go with the cutting of the steel. So here's the 3/16 inch steel. Got it on my little work table here. Make sure I don't cut through it. Yep, we're good. Okay, I'm so excited about getting started with the plasma cutter. I totally forgot to start the camera. But here's the first cut. If you get this plasma cutter, it's the LTP 5000D. I just set it about 65 PSI on the air compressor and just cranked it right up to 50 amps, which I can do because I've got it onto the 240 volt there. Again, I just use this 2x2 as a guide, and I just line up the middle of the plasma cutter. I just go with that line that's on the top, and I just put that right on the line that I draw, and then start at one end, hit the other. A couple times the cable caught and it jiggles just a little bit and opens things up. Not too concerned. All in all, is a really awesome cut line with this thing. But I can totally clean up a lot of that later. So I'm just going to go through, knock off the edges, pull this stuff out, open up these little openings here, cut that off, and liking the way it's going so far. And then I'm going to use my step bit to drill the holes here. I've cut circles with a plasma cutter before. It's rough because it's hard to maintain a nice straight line like it is on a straight edge like this. But it's going really well. Yeah, I'll just set up the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to cut this side edge here. There's a cup. It's kind of good actually that it leaves these little breaks here because they hold the steel and stop it from falling on your feet. I always wear safety boots when I'm doing stuff like this. And then you just sort of snap it off later, but I'm just going to spin this around, cut down here. I'll lop these corners off later and open this up, open that up, and then once this is done, drill those holes and fit it into place, and then everything else builds off around that. As I'm looking at the car right now, I'm thinking I might want to get some paint on these here before they start to rust. I've got a lot of paint around, so I'd hate to forget about doing that. Okay, let me hit that paint first, then I'll be back, finish this cutting, and then we'll get this installed. Well, I've made quite a mess in the shop here. This is all the plasma cutting dust that happens. The hum is the welder. I'm about to start welding up the side supports. I decided to make these out of 1/4 inch. So that's a beefy, that's a 1/2 inch there for the D-shackle. I'm gonna explain this in a second. But we got the base plate in. That's all ready to rock and roll. I'm pretty happy with how it's all set up, and I've fitted in the side supports here, got them all at the right height for the winch plate. And now what I'm going to do is lay in some weld in around here because I'm not going to be able to get in to do this later, and then just up and down in through here. Might actually skip this side here because this is where the winch plate is going to sit, and if I throw a weld in there, it's just going to throw off the sizing. So probably just going to put the winch plate on there and tack underneath that later. But I'm going to put some solid weld down here and here, and then I'm going to grind this down because I want to make sure that this is nice and flush so that this can rest up against this face of the back plate there. And then this needs to be flush as well because the front plate of the whole bumper is going to sit up in there, so that's the driver's side, so it's going to go like that. And there's you can see there's the D-shackle is going to sit in there and hang down, so I'm pretty happy about that. Okay, here we go. Let's get welding. Here's a quick tip that I used when I was working on my skid plates to find the bolt holes after I had the skid plates into position. So what I did is I put a laser right in the center of the hole, or as much as I could figure was the center. And then put the skid plate up in place, and then use that laser point to tell me where I need to put the hole. So I gotta put my glove back on because this steel is still hot from welding it. Pop that up into place. I just need to be flush on the bottom here. And we are rocking and rolling. This is coming along really nicely so far, so good. About to cut the 1/4 inch plate for the base of the winch, which is going to go right in here. Measured it out, it's 34 inches across. And I got 7 1/4 inches deep from the back plate here to the edge here. It's going to come up a bit. But that's where I want to. I just put the shackles in because when I start welding, I want to remember that I got these in. I don't. They're not going to move anymore because I got this welded, but it kind of look starting to look cool. These, when I bolted them in on the side here, I've got some bolts from Home Depot, $3.67 each. So again, the M12 125s. They're I think 50 milliliters long. I don't think you need that. I know Advanced Auto has them for about $4. And I think they're 35 millimeters, but anyways, whatever. So you can get them. When I bolted this in, for whatever reason, these weren't coming in perfectly like straight like that. They were tilting in on both sides. So what I did is I took them off, put it on my bender, and then just squeezed it down a little bit right in behind this groove. So probably right around here. I just put a little bit of a press on it in the bender. That just opened them up, so now it's perfectly square on the front. So just make sure you measure that, because at first I was measuring, because they were pulled in on each side. This one about 1/8 of an inch, this one about 1/4. This was 33 5/8 at the front, but 34 at the back. So I just popped them out a little bit. And beveled the edges, as I did for this plate here on the back. Now beveled the edges. Check the height here. I have to trim a little bit off the top of this one, but so far looking good. Once I get that winch plate in, I'll drill the holes for the mounting, and then I can start tack welding these side supports and the winch plate base into this whole thing here, and yeah, get at it. And one of the things I was worried about, and I think it's going to be okay now, especially because I bent it out a little tad. When these bolts come out here, I want to make sure that this whole unit can slide off. I don't want it to be pressed in. So the fact that I had to bend it out a little bit like that is going to make it for sure easy. I'm sure once those side bolts come off, that panel will pop out a little bit and make it easier to slide this whole thing in and out, because I don't want it to come in and then hit this frame member as I'm trying to put it in, and I'm going to have to press them out, which would be a hassle with the full winch. Anyways, so I'm gonna do some plasma cutting here on the 1/4 inch plate for the winch plate, pop that on, throw the winch on again, and yeah, I'll be back when we do all that. I am ready to start tack welding this into place. So we're going to start with the side supports here. I'll take this off so I can get some better access to it. I'm just going to tack it in around here. I've got a clamp just to keep the center up. So when I'm tacking it into place, and I'm probably going to put a couple clamps pulling it tight here to get it started, just to make sure that back plate is nice and flush in against there. The winch I put into place, marked off all the holes, drilled those. They just bolt up from underneath. I'll be able to access that up, probably from these front little panels that I've got in here, or at least these back plates, but I'd rather be able to access it from the front while the bumper's on the truck, and I don't have to put the winch on before I install the bumper. It's going to be heavy enough as it is. Okay, I kind of thought things were going along a little smoothly, and I thought, I want to pop this off, just make sure it comes off smoothly. I undid all the bolts, and then I'm going to put it back on before I start going any further than this. And I realized I've locked it in to the frame of the truck. So what I need to do is just trim this out here and up there, and that'll allow this piece here to come out far enough to clear these bolts. So I'm just gonna maybe go a little, I need to go at least to there, so maybe go a little to there because it doesn't really matter if I go farther. Probably just need to go underneath this thing, but I'll just take it right from here back, because this is all welded together anyways, or tack welded together. Same thing on the other side. Not a big deal, but I'm gonna get the plasma cutter on here, burn that out, and then that should just pop off. So always something. Okay, we're almost ready to start welding the wings on. I've got the top plate on both sides, and what I was realizing, I was like, this one looks a little bigger, so I decided to do some measurements on here, and as you can see, I'm going to cut this a little narrower here, a little easier to cut it narrower than it is to add on to this one. Oh, I got to move that in a little, just a second. And so what I did is I just measured this out. We'll say, what's this one? Okay, this is a smaller one. And I just put that over, those measurements over here. What else we've been working on here? So this is the bottom plate. This is gonna go like that. This is gonna be the last thing I put on. It's gonna put up in there. And we've got the, where is it? The Fairlead plate. That's gonna go, touch that. This is going to go on the front, obviously, and then this little strip of steel here is going to go right across the front here, like that. I'm going to weld that in, and I might put some little lights in that, like little pin lights. That would look kind of cool. Things are looking really good. I'm pretty excited. Couple things here. One, I got my fog light, so I can finish off the cups in the winch faceplate here, light here and here. But I really like the way this is curving down like that. This is going to be right underneath the grill. As that locks down, that'll just be right on top of that. So that's pretty cool, and I just got this little cutout for my hand there. And I think my plan right now is just to reach in through here to release the winch. Not like we're going to be doing that often. One thing I noticed though, when I started to tack in these, when you weld something, it's going to shrink the metal. It's going to pull on it. And I tacked these in, and I looked over here, and this wing had pulled out. So I'm going to crank it back in now. I might grind through and release one of these tabs here and just let it release that tension, and then I'll push it back up, and it's probably going to move over a little bit. But I'm going to keep this clamp on here until I've got all this stuff welded up right up until there, and hopefully that'll keep it from getting pulled out. So pretty happy with how this is all looking, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but I'm going to work on the cups first. Actually I'll pop that off and then I'll reattach it, but I'm going to work on the cups, get that faceplate in, and then this thing up here, it's coming along nice. Hey, good morning. Well, it is pouring rain outside, and 4Runner is in the driveway soaking wet. I don't even want to put the bumper on it because it's going to keep getting rusted. So what I'm going to do is just, I've got the bumper inside, I keep pulling it in at night, and I'm going to fit these pieces up. Now that I've got this wing on already, this is going to be solid. It's not going to change anything. So I can put this on in here, and I'm just going to cut these pieces, weld them, well, tack weld them into place. Hey guys, I'm really liking how this is looking. As you can see, I painted inside here some primer because I'm going to have a hard time getting in there after I weld on the faceplate, so I painted the back side of that. So I just have to, after I weld it, I'm going to put some enamel on here as well, but after I weld it, then I just have to reach in and do all the edges where the welds are, because that'll burn the paint up. But here's the arm. What I wanted to do is have a nice, good, like, amount of steel out here. This is all 10 gauge that I'm using on the ends. That's 3/16 for support, but these I'm just going to do with 10 gauge. And just did a little bit of a triangle in here. I think it fits together pretty good. So I'm just gonna start pulling these pieces off, work from here, probably do this one and then that one, and then go underneath here. As you can see, I've got a 10-degree angle in here, which I think looks really awesome for the just the wings here. I'm gonna carry that around here. And then on the bottom, I wanna keep that parallel to the top plate, so that's gonna go back again that way. Got everything done. Pretty excited about how it all came together. I've got this little strap in the back here because as you weld, you start throwing down some heat on here, it's gonna pull, because as the weld cools, it tugs on the steel. And I was concerned about these wings widening out, so when I started to weld it all together, first of all, when I was on the truck and I was tack welding it into place, I had these little brackets bolted into the side wing, so that totally helped. But it's about 74 inches from here to the other inside wing on the truck. And so I wanted to try and maintain that. So I just cranked this tight as I was welding it all together, and it seemed like it's helped so I've gone through, I'm gonna do a bunch of stitch welds in here, as you can see. And then put some in the back as well. And on the front, they're all gonna be solid welds. So I already started grinding some down here. Pretty happy with how it's coming out. I think there's a couple of areas where I've got welds that I'm probably not going to sand down. There's one, here's another one down here. So and another one in here. So if you're going to be doing some welds where you're not going to be sanding them down, try and spend a little bit more time making those a little nicer. But yeah, pretty excited about how things are coming along now, and so close to the end. Once I get this done, I'm going to start working on the bars. I've got some steel tubing. I know everybody has round tubing. I've got some back there that they use for bull bars. I'm going to try and go with square tubing, see if I can make that look good. I've got square tubing for my rock sliders and my roof rack, and I'm going to incorporate that into the rear bumper for the swing out, and a ladder back there, like a swing out ladder. So I'm just going to try and maintain that same theme of square tubing through the vehicle. So I'll see how that goes. If it doesn't work, well, then I'll go with round. But pretty happy about how close this is to being done. So here's the finished product. We're almost finished. I got a coat of primer on there and a coat of enamel, and it's going to take you on a quick tour of what we got going on here. I threw the winch fair lead on there just to see what it was like. And so this morning I'm going to be working on some wiring. I'm going to wire in the fog lamps. Fog lamps are already done. I'm going to wire in the floodlights here. Put in a relay over there. And then I've got these little LED amber lights that I'm going to be putting across the front here, 3 of those. Okay, so I'm making the grill bar now, and I actually got so focused on doing it, I forgot to video what we're doing here, but I'll kind of show you before I finish it up. We're just drawing a little radius curve here, and then angle here, and then cutting out the inside here, but leaving that bar on the back. So I'm going to try and get at least a smooth curve. And this is what it looks like once it's all done. Just sort of push that together. It's a really tight fit. And when I bring that in close like that, it's almost fitting on the bottom, which is okay. I'll weld that in, smooth it all out. And then this angle here mimics the angle on the grill. So what I'll do is, it's like a 30-degree bend in, and then I got to bend it forward a bit, and I'll show you that later, in order to allow the hood to come up. But just actually, I'll pop this out right now and just show you. Hopefully you can see that. So just pulling out the bits that I've cut off with the angle grinder. And it's a tight little space, so it's not going to be a super clean cut in there. You can file it off if you want. I don't really care too much about that because we're going to be, I think you can see that, we're going to be welding it all together. So, and it just sort of bends in like that, and we got a nice flat curve on the back side there. And then what we'll do is I need to keep, I've got 115 inches of square tubing. I need 104 for the grill and the light, so I can't screw anything up. You have the grill bar on, tacked into place. Put these little gussets in there. I think they'll be effective. I'm gonna weld those in later. But just got the new Falcon AT3W 285s on here. Super excited. I am gonna pull these front tires off though and cut that frame back and weld that up as well. Make it clean and paint it up, and then the sucker's ready to roll. Got the back wheels chalked. Gonna get the parking brake on. Jack up the front, pull these tires off, and do a little surgery. Here's my vision for the light guards. So I'm going to have it butt up to the grill guard there, and I want to have it parallel the front of the bumper and be just even with the top of the light, going even along to here till about there, right there, and then that's a 30-degree turn, and then parallel this part of the bumper, and if I can have it rise up a little bit of a kind of a look and then here right in line with the parking light start to curve down as much as I can, and then I'm not sure exactly how I want to probably I guess it's going to come straight down because this is going to be out here, so then just come straight down into the bumper. So that's the plan. So let's get cutting. If we're going to start over at this end, cut this little relief out so it butts up to there nicely. Once I've got that done, then I can start jacking around with changing angles and increasing the lift here a little bit. So here's the thought. So far, I was initially going to have that level. I don't know if you can see that. Have that level with the light. Now I'm thinking I'm going to drop it down a little bit here, and then gradually raise it up, because this is a bit of a drop in here, like that is higher than there. So mimic that, maybe a little bit more than mimic it. Bring that over to there, and then starting where you see the little teeth marks there, right here, I'm going to start to take out these little relief cuts. This was just an idea, but what I'm going to do is I've measured it with a radius that I like the curve of, actually an old saw blade, and it's 16 centimeters, I'm Canadian, 16 centimeters on the top and 11 1-inch in. So I need to get rid of 5 centimeters of material on the inside edge. So here's what I'm thinking, is to cut out these little teeth marks here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, start at the beginning and the end there, and take about 8 millimeters out of each one. I'm just going to use my angle grinder, cut that out, bend the pipe in, that'll maintain this outside edge here, so it'll be nice and smooth, and then I'll just weld up the seams and then sand them down, and it should be relatively it's going to be a little like steps, but I think that's going to work. So I got all these cuts out, all the little snips out. It's 16 centimeters across the back there, and 15 on the 11 on the bottom. So what's that? 16. So 6 1/4 inches on the top, and 4.5 inches, 4.25 inches on the bottom. So I need to take out 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters. So what I did is I took 6 cuts in here and did about 8 millimeters each. Obviously I did more than 8 because when I turn this back, you can see it's more than 90 degrees, which actually I'm fine with because it's going to mimic the curve there at the end of the light, which actually is going to be pretty sweet. So that's going to go like this, and then I'm going to weld the middle and the bend there, and then I'm going to cut the ends off, and I'm going to adjust this side here based on what I need to for the angle that I want coming across the light. Okay, so I'm thinking start a little lower. Like that. Oh yeah, I like that. Badly want to weld this into place right now, but I'm going to wait so I can use this as a template. Okay, happy with the way this all turned out. Just welded this up, still smoking, and I'm going to sand these down once I'm done and touch up any, see a weld that I missed right there, and then sand those down. Actually, just add that to this one. And yeah, we're good to go. And I'll sand the bumper down, weld those into place, put another couple little gussets at the end, like I did on the main rail there. And then once that cools down, prime them all up, and then get finishing the enamel coating, and then probably Raptor line it. It's today Friday. Maybe Sunday or Monday, get the Raptor liner on, so that's good. Well, it is all done. I've got it welded in and primed up. I'm about to put the second coat of black enamel on. Sanded down the outside. I'll sand down the inside a little bit. And wipe it all down. Some lacquer thinner and a cloth. And then I'm going to brush on the second coat of enamel. And then try and catch up with coating on the bars here. Get a couple coats of that on. And then it's today Friday, so I'll probably be able to get the Raptor liner on Sunday or Monday. But I like the way it turned out, and looking forward to showing you the final product when it's on the truck. So this is what we're going to be doing with the final coating on the bumper. I use a Raptor liner. I mistakenly bought a tintable base one time, so I also purchased some black toner, and we're gonna put the hardener in there, shake it all up, spray it on. Probably gonna go with 60 psi because that's gonna give a nice fine finish. We've got everything propped up. I'm actually gonna spray the wheel liners and the pinch welds that I bashed in to fit the bigger tires. But we're all set. This is balanced nicely. If you're ever gonna use Raptor liner, this stuff is sticky as heck, so put plastic down for sure, but you don't want to be walking on plastic that's just been sprayed with Raptor liner. You're going to want to have some cardboard down, so make sure I'm going to have to put a piece here. Make sure you have some cardboard that you can walk on and stand on, because it's still going to be sticky, but this plastic just pulls up with your boots if you're walking around on it. So anyways, I've also got a full body paint suit. I'm going to wear an organic vapor respirator mask, 3M 2097 I think, and got the garage door open. I'm going to create lots of fresh air in here because it's a pretty nasty organic vapor that's going to be released, so you want to make sure you're protecting your lungs. But here we go. Okay, so we've got the bumper all done. I am pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm going to take on a quick tour through the final build here. So it's just rained outside. I'm working on some roof rack stuff up there, but Loving the way it turned out. We got some nice little angles here. It's pretty unique. Usually I see these bumpers come straight down here, which looks great, but I like the way this looks even more. Tied in some D-shackles. These are pretty solid. And get the Badlands 12,000 pound winch. I'll show you that in a second from the inside. I got some yellow fog lamps that we picked up from Amazon. Not expensive. I can't remember exactly what they are, but I'll throw all that information into the description. And then I went to Harbor Freight. These were on for like 20 bucks, $20 each. And so I grabbed 4 of those. I'm going to put 2 in the back bumper. Those are nice and bright, and I've got those angled down and to the side so that we can flick those on from inside the cab and be able to show just the ground off to the side. Pop the license plate up into the front, and we've got some air vents in the bottom to get some more air into the radiator. One thing I realized I did wrong when I was putting the winch in, the 2 front winch bolts are right up underneath here, and there's no room to get in there from this side. I can just barely get the bolt on, but I actually had to take the bumper off and go in through these back ports here in order to access the winch bolt with a 5-inch socket wrench, or rather a box end wrench. So anyways, that worked out well, got it all nice and tight, but I just love the way it looks. It's really solid, aggressive looking. So flick the lights on here. So those are all the lights. I threw in a couple of these LED spotlights here, little pin 1/2-inch lights. I think they look really good. And then the fog lamps shine nice and bright down here. I just have to make sure I've got those adjusted, and then you can see the angle of these fog lamps here. Even in daytime, they're pretty bright. They just come shooting out to the side. So I'll take you on a little tour of the winch setup. And then those 3 little LED lights up in the front, they actually stay on all the time, so that when they're as soon as the accessories are on the car, they come in. So I don't even have to have the headlights on to have those going on. So we got the Harbor Freight Badlands 12,000 pound winch and synthetic rope. It's a little lighter than the steel one. I've got all the cables tied in. Not much room up in this area. I didn't want to lose clearance angle here, so I relocated the solenoid over here. So just tied it all in, used some brake cables, some conduit protection here as it's going through the front panel here, and then the ground comes around here, some more protection, and just tied that into the ground here. There's the negative or positive cable, which comes in from the winch through this corrugated line here, ties into this little disconnect switch, and I used a relay for the flood lamps here. The fog lamps, I just tied those into the existing fog lamp circuit that was there for the truck to begin with. So, and then just the hood release. I was going to make another one here to be able to go in here and free spool the winch, but there's enough room here to either get in from the side to grab it, or because we have to turn on the wireless switch here and turn on the winch power there, I figured I'm just going to free spool it once the trunk or the hood is open. One thing I did when I was measuring the angle of this front grill bar is I was looking at that saying, oh, I got lots of room, perfect, but I wasn't looking over on the edges here. So it just touches. So if I push the grill, it creates the clearance, and then I can close it. It's always going to be something. Anyways, I love the way it looks. Super excited about how it's come together. It's super strong. Truck doesn't drive any differently. That Dobinson's IMS suspension is so solid. It's holding the weight of everything that we're throwing on it, and loving it. And as you can see, I finished it with Raptor liner. I think that's a great coating. The hotter it gets afterwards, the tougher it gets. My problem is I want to get things on right away. I would suggest if you do that, wait a week if you can to put it on. Good luck with that, but wait a bit, because as I noticed as I was cranking down on these bolts here, I think you can see it better on the other side, it was pushing out the Raptor liner because it was like the next day or something like that. So these bolts or nuts here are now right down to the bare metal. So later on, I've got some people who already want me to make bumpers for them. So I'm going to end up pulling this off at some point to measure some things for other people, or weld it all together for them before I ship it off. And when I do that, I'll touch this up. So, but other than that, love the way it's come together. Thanks for checking out the channel. I'm going to be working on the rear bumper next week. So if you're interested in seeing that, subscribe or like, or come on back sometime and check out how things have gone. Talk to you soon. Bye.